Several years ago, I had the idea to convert an old step van into like a mobile store and stage for New Perspectives music. And with the help of some of my corporate sponsors, as well as many of you, I was able to make that happen, and I made a whole video series about it that you can still view here on my YouTube channel. The Jambulance has been an amazing experience to create and to use. It brings joy everywhere it goes, and I've had a blast with it. However, because of its size, when I go to use it at events, I often have to pay like 2 or 3 times the booth rate fee to park the truck there, or they put me like way far away from the action. And it's just frankly pretty expensive to own for the amount of times I use it, which is not a lot. So I made a hard decision to let it go. I found the perfect buyer, a young man who has a mobile coffee business in New Jersey who already has a mobile trailer that looks very similar to the Jambulance, so he's going to increase his fleet. But this is not a goodbye video, it's a hello video. I decided to make something a little bit smaller and a little more efficient that I think matches better with my ethos and will still give me that sort of cool wow factor when I do go showcase my guitar somewhere. Since I already own a 30-year-old Honda Acti Japanese import K-Truck, that seemed like the perfect platform to build it on. This truck is my daily driver though, so I need to be able to use it as a truck, but then also use it as a display vehicle. So I came up with this idea that I'm trying out. Now I've had a whole bunch of great name suggestions on social media, and I'm still open to some more name suggestions if you want to leave them in the comment below, but for now we're going to call it the Shred Shed. Here's a quick overview of how I built this. So when I first thought of the idea, I thought about maybe buying another K-Truck or one of those little K vans that are really cool looking and outfitting that as a new Jambulance. But the whole idea of this was to not own another vehicle that doesn't get driven a lot. So I decided to use my own personal daily driver and find a way to make it so it could do double duty, be my truck when I need a truck and be my store when I need a store. And the simple solution was to basically just build my store on a pallet. So I created this pallet that's about the size of the bed. And one of the great things about these K-Trucks are how those sides fold down and they actually come off, so you can access from all directions. So that meant if I built this little pallet with these slots in it, and then I set up a spot somewhere in my workshop that I could back my truck into, I could hold this pallet up on like a sawhorse on some pieces of steel or whatever and drive away, as you saw there. I want to use as much reclaimed material as possible. When I make this, of course, I'm going to end up buying some plywood. But right now I'm using some scrap plywood I had laying around from my old Maker Made CNC bed that I am using to just rough in a back piece. So the height of the cabinet would be 48 inches, plus I need to put a roof on it. It's going to be about a ½ inch. So I push this piece of scrap just up about 1 inch. And this is all not super sturdy right now. It'll get sturdy as the box gets built. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to back the truck in and make sure it's going to fit underneath the door handles and stuff. Right now on the stands, it's 1 inch or so higher than it will be on my truck, but I got to get up over this bump in the pavement. And so I figure this is the easiest way to find out if it'll fit. No problem, we're perfect. Now that I knew the overall scale of my project was going to work, fit in the back of the truck, and fit in my storage bay, I started sort of stick framing it together. And I just used some ½ inch like roofing kind of grade plywood to sort of start just building this box out. And the more you build, the sturdier it gets. And I ended up using some scraps of plywood to help me line it up. And then some of those got replaced with, real pieces of hardwood. But like I said, I was trying to just, buy as little as possible because I'm not even sure if I'm going to use it. So here's like some bed slats that I took apart to cut up and make some trim and stuff with. This was kind of like what a lot of my older work was like, just really using stuff that I had on hand and then I could get inexpensively or for free. And so it was kind of like going back to the old days, except for all the plywood I bought. It started to come together pretty well and started to get a little bit heavier and heavier as it went, faster than I expected. So I knew I needed to work on a better system for holding it as well when it wasn't on my truck. Here I'm just making some real basic drawers to, hold some little things. And well, I'll show you the whole layout in just a second. Okay, now I have it sketched out and we're starting to see it come together. On this side, it's going to be all guitars just lined up in here. We'll open up like a sunshade and actually come up to just a little bit above 90 degrees. Give us like a little sunshade, right? In the back, we'll have some wall here to hang some guitars. And here I've got a couple drawers and a cabinet that opens up that has my solar battery and my amplifiers. And then over on the back side, This is all just storage. We can stack guitar cases up in there, as well as up here I can fit my tent that goes over the truck, as well as some other storage. Just big open spaces that we can access and customize as needed in the future, but for now, it's just wide open. And right now I'm not worried about how any of it looks because all of this is going to get hidden. We're not going to really see any of it. And inside this cabinet, I'm thinking I'll line the whole thing with like black velour or velvet so it'll look like the inside of a guitar case. Put some LED lights in there. It'll be like a really cool little, almost like guitar coffin, you know? And then everything else is going to get skinned, like veneered with some sort of reclaimed wood like I did in the inside of the Jambulance, or I've done a million times. Probably pallet wood, something like that. I have some barn wood laying around. We'll see. But so the whole thing is going to get a look, almost like a house. Almost like a house. Almost like a house. And it was when I said almost like a house that I realized what was wrong is that I was building a box, not a house. And it wasn't looking right. It was looking sort of just proportionately, you know, blah and boring. And then I just realized if I just cut these 45-degree angles, I could make my whole lid that I was describing, that would be the cover for the guitar as a sunshade, easier. I would use a little bit less weight, less material, make it look better, make it more streamlined down the road. And now the project really started to come alive. I just needed to make sure that the top was wide enough to hold the headstocks of the guitars as they sit in the rack that I had pulled out of the Jambulance to reuse, and also that the top was still going to be wide enough to hold. I have a 10 by 10 tent that I sometimes use that I thought would be nice to have with me on really sunny days to put over the whole truck. So, you know, when I took that into account, I ended up with this sort of Snoopy doghouse shape. Hinged it all up just again using all this half-inch plywood, and got it all to basically work. I picked up some thick-walled steel square tubing to hold the box instead of the 2x4s I've been using temporarily, and at this point I realized that it was getting pretty heavy and pretty difficult for me to just lift up by hand, so I knew I was going to have to incorporate some kind of hydraulic lifting system. But I wasn't worried about that yet. I just kept working, and I knew I would solve it when it needed to be solved. And then I just picked up some of this sheeting, this corrugated metal roofing that people put on their sheds and stuff, and put that along the top. I didn't put it the proper way, like the way that the rain is supposed to flow and stuff. I put it the way that looked and made sense for the truck, made it less work. I guess it's sort of the streamlined way, but I really don't plan on having this truck out in the rain anywhere anyways, and I'm going to keep a tarp with me in case I need to just tarp it if I'm driving, you know. But it looks pretty good. What I liked about using the metal this way is it has some flex to it, so I could actually bend it over these angles, cover my hinges, and now it just looks like one solid roof, but I can still open and close them. I just had to put vents in on both sides too, so I could get some airflow for my guitars while I'm driving. And of course, there's still a million things that I need to trim out and everything, which I'll get to eventually, but this is all the cedar fence that used to be in my yard a long time ago, which I took down, and then it was my wall in my workshop until the recent workshop redesign, and now it is getting used yet again to side this truck. It's like 3 or 4 times reclaimed now. It was really hot and humid the days I was doing this, but it was a fun little break to have something a little bit different to do than what I'm usually doing. And I wanted to make these drawers in this back cabinet where the amplifiers are going just sort of blend in, so you can see I sort of just cut the wood to fit together so it looks sort of seamless. Works okay. So now we're at basically full weight of the box without my guitars and amplifiers in it and stuff. And I thought I'd just take it for a little drive to see if the truck could handle the weight, and it did no problem. So I came back and stripped a little more paint off with a wire brush, and I used some water-based white stain as a primer just because I had it laying around, and primed the whole thing with this white stain. And then I had a little bit of exterior white house paint left over from some stuff I did around my home, and I used that to paint everything. I was going to buy some gas lifts like you would have in the back of like a station wagon or SUV to hold these doors up, but I decided against it because then I would have to force them down and create a latch to hold the doors down when I wanted them down. And this way I just let gravity do the work, and I can prop them up. And now it was time to start making the inside look good and move into the truck, see if it's going to work out. This is a wicked simple solution to make my little door work as a table and have it open and hold nicely. I ran up to the fabric store looking for some crushed velvet. Everything was very expensive, but I found in the remnants rack these two pieces of cloth that were actually pretty. I think I spent $28 altogether for like a lot of yards of this stuff. I didn't know how much I was going to need, and I came up with the idea, instead of making it look like a coffin, I thought I'd make it look like a stage, which it kind of is. So I did this background to sort of look like lights or like a backdrop, and then I used this dark sort of snowflake cutout black fabric that was wicked cheap to make curtains. And that's the guitar rack that I had made years ago for the Jambulance that always worked well for keeping the guitar still while I drove. And I just put that in there as well, put some black paint on it. So this is my new system now for getting the box on and off the truck. Since it's a little bit heavy for me to lift, I just lift my whole truck. So I use a floor jack, lift the truck up. This is my first time trying it with my small jack, and I went and I picked up a better jack to make life easier for me. And I'm still just using these steel frame stools that I made to hold the other side of it. But I am going to build something better. And then I put my sawhorses underneath just to be there in case something happened. So now here you can see that with the new jack, it's a little bit easier to do. And the more I do it, the better I'll get at it. But you can see I have a bigger jack, so I jack up the back of the truck and put some jack stands under it. I go to the front and jack that up, just leave it on the jack, pull the steel pipes out, and then bring the truck down. Altogether, it took me about 10 minutes to get this on the truck and ready to go. I did have to kind of push it around a little bit on the bed so I could line it up so these doors would close. I used one of those metal rods to just sort of leverage it out. And I threw that shipping strap over the top just to make sure the tops didn't flap around while I'm driving. And then I went down to Middletown, Connecticut for my first try at using this truck at a show. Last month I did this show with the Jambulance, and then this month I showed up with this, which everybody thought was pretty interesting. That how many trucks does this guy have? And you can see they saved me way more space than I needed because they were picturing me showing up with that big truck. But it's set up pretty quickly, and there's definitely some things I need to change and improve upon, and futz around with a lot of trim I want to make look better. But so far, so good. First time out was a success, and I even got home up the big hill. Maybe not as fast as I would have liked to, but I made it up the big hill on my way home. So it was a nice night to try out the truck. Now, don't get me wrong, I miss the Jambulance already, but I like this because it's easier to maintain, less expensive. I don't have to own another vehicle that's registered and insured and keep it running right and stuff. So I think this fits better for the relatively small amount of times that I actually go out and showcase my work this way. And when I'm not using it, it's just sitting quietly in my storage bay and I don't have to worry about it. Everything's fine and I got my truck back. Oh yeah, and I'm still open to some name suggestions. You can drop them in the comments. Since I was able to use so much reclaimed material that I already had laying around, and I already had some of the expensive bits and designed parts from the Jambulance that I was able to incorporate into this truck, it did not cost me a lot to build. I think all in, I've got about $400 spent on it so far. And of course, I still have a lot to do, as is the nature for these types of projects. I mean, there's a lot of spots on there that I want to trim out and make look better. I want to get some better branding on it. I was putting a solar panel on it to charge my portable power station. We'll get there as time goes, but I wanted to just get it up and running too and see what I like about it and what I don't like about it. See if I even want to continue to build it. I like to, design in use and not in speculation. So besides a little bit of putzing around with some details, that's pretty much all I'm going to do on it right now, and I'm going to try it out for the rest of the season before I do any further, especially expensive things. And if you're in Connecticut and you want to come check it out in person, check out my website at newperspectivesmusic.com. There's a calendar there that shows where I'm going to be. Now, not every event I'm going to is allowing me to bring this truck, but drop me a line, find out if it'll be there. All right, thanks for watching and be good.